All right, Comeback team community, welcome to the Comeback podcast. Robert Masson here with my coaches, my teammates, Trevor T.A. Anderson, Chuck Wolf, Frank Van Koolen couldn't join us this time. We are here in beautiful Park City, Utah. What most of you probably don't know, we're an Orlando-based program, but I have a home away from home in Park City, Utah, and spine surgery practice here as well. And I have so many friends here that represent the winter sports, mountain sports side of the equation. And, coming from Florida, obviously, we have such an incredible summer sports component. But, this is an incredibly valuable opportunity for us to bring the team here, to hang out with my friends, to hang out with the setting, the vibe, the mountains, the incredible snowfall we've had. We've had an incredible trip here. And we're here to basically talk about all things relevant to mountain sports, all things relevant to winter sports. And, not everybody lives in beautiful sunny Florida with year-round perennial sports of all types, where training's a little easier, where everything is a little bit more predictable. We deal with the elements, we deal with the altitude, we deal with, the incredible cold, the variance to the heat, and so many incredible winter sports that we're going to touch on as we talk about this. So, I welcome you all here. We're really excited to be here. We've already had an incredible time. Our entire crew has been on the mountain with us. We've had some interesting moments. We've had some tests. We've had some challenges, some journeys, and we've learned a lot about ourselves, and we continue to voice our message to this community about the value of living life to the fullest, the value of being your best self forward in whatever environment you're lucky enough to find yourself in. So with that, I think we're going to start on, the overall concepts. What is important to consider when you're anticipating a trip to the mountains, dead of winter, bracing the cold, where you're going to be, confronting the mountains? And, TA?
Yeah, first off, it's an honor as a native Floridian to be in an environment like this. I think every young, Florida kid, just grows up wanting to see snow and wanting to know what it's like to have a white Christmas and, all of these things. But, on the other side of that, the snow is a very real element that provides such a different lifestyle, such a different way of life, such different demands on the daily routine that you have to become one with the nature and one with the environment just to be able to survive, efficiently. Even if it's going to the grocery store, or driving down the mountain. I know every time we leave the house, as soon as we pull out of the driveway, we have to do a brake check, right? Brake check. I'm not accustomed to that. That's not something that we do in Florida. We just put our foot on the gas and go. But what I've noticed about this environment is that, first of all, anytime you get into a scenario that is a little bit, less than similar to what you're accustomed to, it brings out a different aspect of you, a different part of your being, a different attitude. And, this was really the first time that I was able to enjoy the calm and the quiet of a raging snowstorm while snowflakes fall on my face. It might sound silly to some people who grew up in the north and grew up in the mountains, out west and grew up with snow. But for me, Chuck, I'm telling you, it was a brand new experience for me. It has invigorated me. And I really understand why people want to spend so much time, out here in this environment. What do you think, Chuck?
Well, TA, I've been in Orlando for 24 years now, and I'm originally from Chicago. And seeing snow to this magnitude isn't quite what I'm used to, but we've had some serious snowstorms along the way. One of the reasons I moved to Orlando is because I'm a warm weather person, and I just enjoy being outdoors in the warm weather. I remember, though, as a young child, playing in the snow and really not thinking how cold it really was outside. We get used to our environment for a while. And sometimes we need to be taken out of our environment, one, to appreciate nature, because I've never seen snow in the mountains to this magnitude that I can ever remember. And it's cold here. But going out today in the snow gear and the ski gear kind of brought something back out of me, wanted to put me into an uncomfortable situation for a while, just from the point of getting dressed, having to put on all the gear and all the layers. But once we got out there, it was absolutely beautiful. And it took me away from that mindset of, I don't like cold weather. But at the same time, if you're prepared for it, let it be if it's the gear, let it be if you prepare mentally, let it be if you prepare physically. I did not regret being out there for an hour and a half or 2 hours that we were, and I didn't even know that it was cold until I had a snow beard. Then I realized how cold it was. So this taught me something of not having that predetermined mindset, and got me a little uncomfortable for a bit, but I enjoyed being uncomfortable and expanding.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. And last night we had a dinner, and I invited a few of my local friends, and we had an incredible private experience, and we just talked about everything that we do in Florida and all that we're about, and all of the attempt to motivate this community, inspire, and bring this community to a point where we're improving our adult physical capacity. But one of the amazing things, and I think you guys fed off it, is how for the people that live here, there's a higher fundamental preparedness. They're used to this environment, but this environment is harsher than our environment in Florida. And it's interesting, they call us flatlanders, and I'm always trying to prove I'm not a flatlander, but bringing you guys, I'm officially a flatlander. I'm part of your team. But I think when you look at the sports season and you look at the tourism aspect of it, and you look at how many people who are physically active, adventure oriented, who are traveling and vacationing, they seek to come skiing, snowboarding, mountain biking in the summer, but it transitions into snowmobiling in the winter, long hikes, beautiful cross-country skiing episodes. It's a different element. It brings out physical challenges, emotional challenges, cold and altitude challenges, and preparedness is more important in these conditions than it is in easy, sunny, relatively warm environments. Obviously, the activities have their own challenges, but in this location, a big part of the challenge is just being here and overcoming the things. So right off the bat, I think it's been obvious that we can teach our community better ways to prepare for their planned trip to the mountains, whatever it may be for. Obviously there's a lot of opportunity for injury, and we talk about injury mitigation, we talk about injury recovery, we talk about, most importantly, injury prevention. Well, that doesn't start by, just being lucky. A lot of people show up unprepared, and it goes back to this concept that we don't have time to prepare. Well, when we look at the things that we can do, one of the things that I used to wonder, and I drew in my sports experience to know that 3 months out, I was going to start preparing for my winter trip. Now that you've spent a day, conquering this hill, how much did your flatland experience really prepare you? And did you find any opportunities that you would have focused on more, knowing what was in store?
Yeah, I wouldn't quite say I mastered the environment, but you bring up a phenomenal question, and it's, how do you know you're prepared for the environment that you're moving into if you've never experienced it before? I think nobody can fully be prepared to know exactly what they're going to experience, and that's why they have to lean on a coach to be able to say, hey, listen, here's what you're up against, and here's A, B, and C, a process of how you prepare. To answer your question, how did the flatland prepare me for that? It did not. It did not, and me learning how to just navigate the snow from moment one, the moment I first clicked my first ski into the ski, my first boot into the ski, immediately the ski took off on me. I said, hold on a second. What let me know right off the bat is that when you experience new sports, new activities, it may seem fun, it may seem exciting when you see other people doing it, but you're realizing they're making it look pretty easy because they've been there and done that before. Whatever it is that you're about to go through, they've already been through. And you immediately have a very high level of respect for people that do it at the highest level. You know, I'm a competitor, and I train athletes at the highest level in many different sports. You know, you could see somebody like Lindsey Vonn doing downhill skiing and the kind of success that she had, just to name one person. And, you know, one thing about the best athletes in the world is they make their craft look very easy. You know, they make it look easy and fun and like, wow, I would like to try that too. But then you immediately are able to respect the work and the diligence, right? And the perseverance that it took for them to get to the level that they are. Not just to have a basic competency of the actual activity or skill, but to really become a master of it. And when you say master of the hill, listen, I have a long way to go out there. But, you know, one thing I want to say is that we tend to think of the experiences as physical. And yes, there is a physical aspect to that. I think that's you know, it goes without saying. But you start to tap into different aspects of your psyche. You tap into different mental conditioning. You tap into different levels of emotion. When you're down on the ground and you don't know how to get back to your skis and you don't know how to put your skis in the lateral to the hill and the snow just the right way at the right angle and put your hips in the right spot and your chest in the right place so that you can stand up on your own, it's a humbling experience, especially if you know that you've been, you know, pretty decent at other sports in your life on the what? Flat land, right? So Chuck, I was gonna ask you actually, being somebody that's from Chicago, right? Somebody that's from the north, somebody that has experienced snow in the past, and somebody that's done everything that they can do in sport at the highest level. How do you think that it translated when you came down to a flatland sport environment? Were you able to easily transition from one to the other? Or was it something that was a challenge to go from a snow environment to a flatland, just like I went the other way around?
Well, TA, I mean, going from the snow environment, I didn't do many sports in Chicago, winter sports in Chicago. I was indoor. I played basketball in the wintertime, baseball in the spring and summer. But the transition, you have to watch your steps. You have to, even today when we were walking, visiting your office, I told you, because I saw black ice, that's the killer here, is that you don't walk heel first. You kind of shuffle and go forefoot first when you see an environment such as that. In this case, even though we're in snow, there was ice underneath the snow as well. So we have to be cautious in that respect. And going from a dry land or a flatlander to this type of environment, you better be prepared to shorten your stride a little bit and be more cautious. But at the same time, going back to a point that came to my mind when you were talking about Lindsey Vonn as an example, let's get back, even though she's one of the top in the world, let's get back to the fundamental foundations that she has to do, or any other skier or any other athlete in any sport, and that's strength, cardiovascular work, flexibility, endurance, explosiveness, all that plays out here. Now, one of the things that I was thinking about, knowing that I was going to be coming here about 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, I always include some of those components, even at my age, into my training. But the one thing that I really worked on was making sure that I maintained good flexibility, particularly in my hips, because today when we're walking in the snow, the shallowest part, except when we're on the run itself, the shallowest part was about knee deep. Now, you better have good mobility in your hips, because how many times did we start to lose our balance? And you talked about when you were on the ski slope yesterday, your ski parallel to the hill. But at the same time, if you didn't have that mobility in your hips, in the knees, in your spine, you're setting yourself up for injury. And it's not just in this sport, but it's in any sport. Right. But in this case in particular, and you're coming from a flatland or a drylander to something like this, you better make sure that you're mobile, and you better make sure you have good flexibility.
Right, and many of these activities we talk about, it's not necessarily what you can't do, but what you don't do. Now, I've been in many different situations in many different sports where I've been able to squat all the way to the ground, have pretty good ankle mobility, hip mobility, all of that stuff. But you can have all of those physical aspects without having engaged in the specific activity, right? So when you're training for that, when you're coming up to a time like this, you know you have 6 to 8 weeks to prepare. In addition to the base foundation of conditioning and training, you also must have some specific intention on the activity that you're training for. So, in my world, 70% of what athletes need in every sport is all pretty similar. But that top 30% of what they have to do becomes condition specific, sport specific, and it prepares them to perform at the highest level in their sport. And for somebody that has really dominated so many sports, I really mean it. I mean, somebody that can really participate in sports at a very high level across the board. How do you find it, Coach, that you're able to keep yourself available physically and athletically for these multiple activities?
We've talked about this before, and it's the commit to participate kind of thing that I live my life by. I'm always looking forward to my next opportunity, and I'm always thinking of it because I have a lot of things that are pretty eclectic in adventure sports and physical sports and in games. I love the competition and I love the participation, but I do recognize the inherent dangers and the inherent risks. So I always want to be ready for it. And so, there's an emotional component too. When I know ski season's coming, and this year, because of last year with the COVID thing, oh boy, I couldn't wait for ski season. And it was just such a flag on the hill to get to, such a beacon of hope. And so, I immediately, come October, November, mindset-wise, I was already starting to anticipate, okay, I'm going to be at altitude. I'm going to be pushing myself. My quads are going to be at failure pretty quick when I push 99.90 here. I've got this mental image. I think, we've been talking about flatlanders, and I know so many people who live here. The one advantage that you have when you do live here and you navigate these winter sports is you know what to expect. People who come from far, far away have so many things to adapt to on the fly. And so when I'm coming from Florida, and I know I'm going to be, particularly when I'm skiing with my friends here, I know that I've got to catch up to them. So I'm paying extra attention to aerobic conditioning, extra attention to hip and quad flexibility, postural control, proprioceptive control, speed and agility. I do a lot of tree skiing, and people don't really pay attention to the reality that if you don't practice speed and agility, your movements are going to be slow. I mean, and it depends what level you're doing this. I mean, obviously most people are out here to do blues and greens and cruise runs and groomers and hang out with their kids. But at the end of the day, every aspect of your performance translates to your health and ultimately your risk. And, I just think this is such a perfect test. And you guys know how I love tests. And so when I look at the overall season, the altitude effect, the nutritional effect, getting used to the time change, people are coming from New York City. They're doing their 60-hour minimum work week. They're hustling. They're trying to do their gym routine. And then, boom, get on a flight. They've got to adjust to the lag. They've got to adjust to the altitude, to the dehydration, the dryness of the air, the cold, and by the way, hop on the mountain and test themselves to whatever limit they're trying to test themselves. And so there's a preparedness component that we're going to talk about to the end of time, unfortunately. But it's so critical. And I think if you're diverse, if you're eclectic, if you are seeking adventure travel and adventure vacation lifestyle in your personal space, you need to always remember to hone in those little details. And there's a mindfulness aspect to that where you have to remember the challenges and the demands of whatever it is you choose to do to be your best self forward and to be your safest self forward. And so with that in mind, when I started looking forward to this trip in October, November, and then after we all agreed that this would be an incredible winter sports opportunity for perspective and mindset, it just fueled everything. And it's good to be excited. You don't want the process to be a job. You want the process to represent the opportunity in a way that just makes you happy, that really, really keeps you in the game. And, the one thing that I always feel in Florida is if you're only thinking one activity or one niche thing, pretty soon you're doing what you're comfortable with, but you're not stretching yourself. You're not spreading your wings. And it's really easy to be really ready for the one thing you do, but not ready for anything else. And then you show up to another challenge and you're fooled. And so I think if you're diverse and you're doing winter sports, particularly, you've got to remember to diversify how you do those things.
To that point, you said a couple things, and you ended it by saying diversify. And part of one of the things that I caught my attention when you were saying is you were getting ready for coming here, how your training changed a little bit and doing a little bit more sudden shifting because you're tree skiing. You have to be quick. You have to be agile. You have to be moving side to side. So often people that come on vacation and that are in fitness do too much in forward and back movements. And we'll get into the training aspect in a bit, but vary it. Move in all planes, move side to side, do quick, short bursts, because that's what you're going to be doing out here. And that's part of the preparation.
Yeah, and I think to add on to what Chuck's saying as well, there are some sports that are anticipatory, right? So like if I'm, Coach and I have been out and played tennis before, there's a real person on the other side of the net that even if you're just, having a nice rally going back and forth, the ball's not always going to be in the same place. You can't, you have to see how the ball comes off the racket, how you need to move and whatnot to be able to be successful to get a positive stroke back to the other side of the net. There's some sports like golf, which are hard in their own ways, but there's not as much of that anticipatory, requirement in that game. So to your point, Chuck, of, not just having one sport, but being able to diversify, I think you've mentioned it in the past. I think every activity that I've done has prepared me for every other activity that I've done, right? So growing up being a multi-sport athlete, I was, I used to think that I was a jack of all trades, master of none. But now that I'm at, my age where I have kids that are participating in college sports and things of that nature, I do have the ability to cross from one sport to the next, to the next, to the next with a pretty high level of competency. Well, what I realized too is I'm a flatlander. Right? So if I want to come out and be successful on these slopes out here, I really need to make sure that I put in the work, put in the proper training, put in the proper time, make sure I dominate the foundational aspects of it and all the most basic fundamentals. And then that's when things start getting fun. That's when you start being able to challenge it.
And we have to keep that fun. And people who come out here once a year, they may have been outstanding athletes in their winter games. But jobs, family takes them away from that training or that opportunity to be at the highest level. So one thing too is don't take yourself so seriously out here. Come out here and you just said fun. We need to have fun when you come out here. And again, today was a perfect example of it.
But have fun while respecting the game. You have to respect nature. You have to respect what this snow does. You have to respect gravity. Gravity's undefeated, right? You just have to respect it. And I think if you come out with a true, authentic mentality to respect the environment, then that really gives you the best mindset to move forward and actually make progress out there.
Absolutely. Well, I got to witness what I consider clear, unbridled childhood joy in the both of you and some of the things we put ourselves through earlier today. So anyway, at this point, to our community, this is the intro to what we hope to be talking about. We're going to break down being comfortable, being uncomfortable. We're going to break down in-depth preparation. We're going to really look at what does it mean to prepare for this kind of environment, for this kind of activity, for this kind of pivot from one type of sport to another type of sport. Seasonal change. We're going to talk about that and the impact of season-to-season migration of activity. And we hope you join us for the next several podcasts. Join us on social media. Come to our website, join our community, make a link to our cause. We're going to try to help you be the best you have ever dealt with. And if you're in the midst of your own setback, we're going to try to show you the way to your own comeback. All right, take care.